Hey guys, welcome to Principal Profit Trader, July 11th, 2025, a weekend review here. We have finally made new all-time highs in Bitcoin. Just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Okay. Yes, we have made new all-time highs in Bitcoin. And as I said earlier, especially which we could have seen on the weekly chart, that the way price approached this major resistance this time was bullish. We had that inverse head and shoulders, which I've drawn here, right? And we also talked about how last week's weekly candlestick pattern was that doji, which is, contracted energy. It's not a reversal in a sense. Like we didn't have a selling tail. Last time we got there, selling tail, huge move down, double top, not mature enough. Here we have that inverse head and shoulders, much more mature. So this is definitely a scenario. So this is the scenario where that now that we broke out, this could be a potential target. We could have a very bullish summer, right? We'll see what happens, right? So how do we now day trade this? I mean, we certainly don't want to be telling everyone to be buying at the most expensive top, right? But at the same time, once we did break the all-time highs yesterday, right? A little bit of patience would have worked out. Now, there was a signal in the channel to buy here, which was great trade location on the day. You couldn't have gotten any better. But I believe I got out a little too early. I might have re-entered again, and then it stopped me out of break even again. So I kind of missed this big move. So instead of just being peeved and whatever, is there anything that we can do? And I'm not just saying this in hindsight. This is part of the system. Okay, so we have a bigger picture bounce breakout on the daily, right? And now we have momentum in play. Okay. With this, let's go on the 15. With this, let's get rid of this for a sec. So as this is breaking out, you could say, oh my God, this was at around 3 o'clock. Now, usually, that's kind of late in the trading hour, especially for futures, but this is Bitcoin. These are the thoughts that I was having at the time. That kind of, because even though I got out of that short, which is great, I should have maybe held this runner. But the idea is that, there is other setups once miss a zone fade for reversal, because, there wasn't a huge amount of info head up. Maybe like, that this would break out at this moment. But the idea is that once it did, then we can use a Fibonacci retracement here because of the bigger picture balance breakout on the daily, right? And now we have time frame alignment because the short, intermediate, everything's up, and all the other markets are up, and this was really bullish. It pulled right back to a 38.2. That was a great add-on or a place to go long if you missed it. And that was a huge move. But I think I got pissed and just went to the gym or something like that. Because I was like, oh my God, whatever, I missed it, I'm done. But then, it's tough to sit through something when you miss it, knowing that you need to wait for one of these pullbacks. All right. Let's say you even missed that one, right? Which I did, right? This also at around 10:15 my time, or I'm sorry, 8:15 my time, was also an add-on, but I guess I was asleep around that time. I go to bed pretty early because I wake up very early. But I mean, this is how this market is. It never sleeps, right? It worked right to 38.2. It's exhausting. You gotta take that. Right now, at this point in time, we had two trend updates on the daily, right? We had trend up, and the pretty big move out. You want a strong launching point of directional conviction out of that, right? But at the same time, you're in blue sky. So, this technically, I have an alert here. This is the low of the current day, right? It's very tough to be patient and follow correct process because I almost took that. If you look on the hourly here, there was a huge kind of this hook from extremes or even a zero line reject. But I mean, that pattern was even forming while this was touching the VWAP. And that's why I wrote in the channel, I said, this really isn't, even though we have a lot of high relative volume, because we're potentially overextended in the short term, it's not necessary. I'm not like super excited about taking pullback continuation setups at the VWAP. I mean, we're not at the low of the day. And technically the momentum, this is not even really a pullback continuation because the momentum at this point, this has been hours going sideways. Well, this is an hourly chart. Whereas yesterday, if we go on the 15, even the hourly, let's see what the hourly looks like. I mean, with the thing about this is that this has the recency of momentum, right? It's trending within the day, and this sort of went up and then went sideways since about 3 in the morning. So it's not really a trend up day. While this was clearly we broke out of a balance, that should have really alerted me. Hey, we just had a balance breakout pattern. It's a bigger picture balance breakout. Now we have short, intermediate, big picture alignment. Now I can get aggressive. Now I can take a pullback continuation setup. That's kind of what I knew to do, but I guess because I got out or I had the perfect entry on the day here and I kind of got out or whatever, I was like, whatever, the emotions kicked in. And it was tough to sit through because that was at 9:30 that I gave that signal. I think. Let's see. Yeah, because I hit it right on the nose. 9:30 perfectly. Right? It's just sitting through that, it was tough. But at least we didn't get stopped out, thinking, okay, we need to short this. I was very cautious on the shorts because of how we got there, which was really bullish. Now the longs with all this directional conviction, you can see, like, look at the candlesticks for the bulls, just so much stronger now. But that doesn't mean that I can buy up here, break my rule, and think this is a pullback continuation setup because we already had, up day, multiple up days, and now it's very rare to have 3 up days in a row consecutive. So I'm just thinking in probabilities of even though I wanted to buy here and I wanted to buy around here. Because around here, even though it's not quite at the low of the day, there was that thing on the hourly, and Ethereum was at its low of the day. So that I could have zoned leaned that and got in. And part of me is like, I just don't want these Class B or Class C setups just because I missed the good ones. You know what I mean? And it would have worked out, but that's okay. There's also emotional capital. Got family coming over, visiting in and out. So, I got to be ready for the Class A setups, even though, just a little, another one that was an awesome setup, fading this low of the day here, right? I think I said I wanted to wait for a little better trade location. Not really. I mean, you could go a little bit lower, but it's just the perfectionism can stall you a little bit. That was also a huge move. But calling the market, the system has done very well. Executing it, human being, whatever, it's a little difficult. But you can see how I'm not just support, we're at resistance, now we have to go down. No, like the way that we got there, all those other things I look at, bigger picture patterns, multiple time frame alignment, where we were on the daily, all this was pointing towards more of a bullish. Like, even though we were up there, I said there's hope this time, right? But because I was up there, that doesn't mean that there wasn't going to be opportunities potentially for day traders to go sideways and then do shorts as well. So that's why I said the larger time frame bias was neutral while we're around there. Now that we broke up there, my larger time frame bias is not neutral. It is bullish, big time, because we just had a balanced breakout, right? At the same time, I'm not just going to buy, like, oh my God, we're breaking out again. Let's buy up at the high of the day. Like, no way. When this broke out, my gut was to buy it because we just had a contextually aligned, bigger picture balanced breakout setup. Because I'm sort of a perfectionist and come from different schools of thought, I had the right entry. I just said, well, I'll let this one go. But, I should have went into, okay, what is the market telling me now? Let that go. The market is telling me I'm not buying it just because it has a big candle just now. It broke this huge high of the day. And I was thinking, well, maybe this will be a false breakout now and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, that's always a risk. But at this time, all those things, the way that we got there, the bigger picture pattern, there was, and then I also didn't even need to necessarily buy the breakout. There was the fib. Once it was confirmed with the other markets, there was so much momentum on the day. The intraday bias was bullish. The sustained momentum was bullish. The other markets were green. That's when you just say, okay, I'm buying a pullback continuation pattern, whether it's at 23.6 or 38.2. I'm going to, or even zero point 0.5 or 0.618. See, the stops can go at each fib ratio, and you can take, a couple hour losses in a row because even though they might be psychologically harder for some people to take, these pullback continuation setups have really high odds in the right context. Now, I wouldn't be taking a pullback continuation setup if we didn't just break major resistance. If we did that move into the resistance and pulled back in front of it, I would not take it. That's a rule we have. You have to break above it and then take it. So, like I said, these are rules written in the channel. Doing this with high stakes capital, I just walked away. I went long. I guess, I almost got stopped out on the short side, just thinking this would go sideways for a little bit in between here, because the momentum was pretty low on the day until this really started to take off. You don't really know when these candles are going to take off. But I guess given what happened yesterday, I should have been more open to the possibility of that. Hang on one sec. My dogs are here. Let me just take a second. Yeah, sorry for that delay. I have my nieces and family, everyone just arrived. But anyway, yeah, because this broke out, so I have to go back and say, so what did the system tell me to do? Well, the system called it very well. So while the system says I can take a pullback continuation setup today, as tempting as it was to even take it here, even take it here, I really can't take it there today based on what the system says, even if it does work out. This I should have because it just broke out. But what I can do today is take it at the first good support zone, which is why I had this alert here to take it at the low of the day. Oh, my dog's a little hurt here. Tango, it's okay. You can stay here, Tango. So that's the idea. I'm going to go long today when we revisit the low of the current day because I have to use trade location because I'm thinking in terms of momentum as well. Short-term momentum, we're exhausted. So I can't take a momentum hybrid setup like a pullback. Whereas yesterday, when we broke it with momentum, even though it was late in the day, it had good odds to continue, et cetera, et cetera. I should have took a pullback continuation setup. Today, I want trade location, even though this might work out. Like I said, the hourly, whatever, but still, I want really good setups. We're not that far from the all-time high. So, hang on a sec. So, yeah, still, we might just be going sideways, need a day to rest. I really, like I said, you could have zone leaned on that less than not right at the low of the day because Ethereum was at its low of the day. I use those in synchronicities. It's called intermarket relationships. I added to the daily call. There are real time weights that work really well. Like the real time weights have helped me from getting smashed on taking it at major resistance again a couple times, which as an investor, I'm happy about. I'm happy for the bulls to take off, but it was correct process. Once the larger time frame bias switched from bullish to bearish, I'm sorry, from bullish to neutral, aka uncertain as into who's in control from a larger time frame perspective, because we are around the major resistance, right? I can be open to trade location shorts, and some of them did work out, but now that we're above it, I'm not open to shorting anymore. Let's go bulls, because we have multiple time frame alignment. Now, in addition to Bitcoin doing very well today, let's say this. Oh, by the way, now that we broke this, here's 100% range principle. There's good odds that we can get to about 150,000. And that's in alignment with, it's actually more conservative. Some major pundit technical analysis gave 170K. I posted in the channel under news. But I mean, it's roughly in alignment with mine. I mean, 150, 170. Yeah. So this is what we'll see now that we have a balanced breakout and really good, no false breakout, right? No, No little selling tail. Now we're coming back into it. This is exactly what we wanted. And on some level, because we have time frame alignment, I can go very aggressive at every support and skip resistance in terms of getting long or short. But at the same time, I really can't do a momentum setup today and take a pullback at the VWAP because we've had consecutive trend days up, and we know that it is very rare to get consecutive pure trend days in a row. These are all principles we have to memorize in the system. Although there was some odds to take it, like I said, Ethereum, other markets, it wouldn't have been totally incorrect, but just super aggressive. So now what I'm going to do is just take a look at the breadth of the market. SWI's been very strong. I had this trend line drawn for a while. Once we broke that trend line, right, just like this, once we broke this trend line, that's when directional conviction can start happening. We had 2 trend days in a row. Now that we're back up towards this pot, it is going sideways doji, resting. It's totally beauty principle. It makes sense that we'd be going kind of sideways here for a bit. We'll see what happens. There might be some add-ons if this starts to pull back a bit. There's also a hook from extremes as well, which is also a sign of strength when we're starting out, right? But then, once we get up to a good resistance, we'll go sideways because the market's moving a series of thrusts and then corrections. So it goes up, sideways, up. So I expect this to go sideways for a couple of days, maybe a week or two at most, and then go up again, maybe even sooner. I mean, who knows? I mean, just because this took a week and a half or whatever before we got this doesn't mean this will, because of the context being a little different. Straight line up into it. This, kind of a building going sideways and now breaking. So you have to kind of think of that. And then when you're adding your weights, when you're going long or short, say, are the other markets on my side or are they not? Like, any type of, if you went long today, the other markets are on your side. Everything's been pretty green. Okay. Much needed relief in alts that haven't had any buying. But even though, these are on the intraday bias much higher than Bitcoin, the context is just not anywhere near as good. Going to need some serious capital injection and a lot of energy to attract retail back. Retail is just not talking about crypto, and we need retail to go into alts to move altcoins. Now, if you're in a lot of Bitcoin, you're super happy right now. It doesn't really matter. But out of all these coins, Bitcoin is the strongest. It typically moves first. It has time frame alignment, right? Ethereum also now breaking out of this has multiple time frame alignment and will most likely move from this high volume node to this high volume node. So it's sort of a magnet. Price tends to move between high volume nodes. Remember, when a price is in a trend phase, it's rejecting value, right? This was actually a price agreement for several months, relatively speaking. And that's what a high volume knows is price acceptance. And then when it breaks the trend in search of new price areas, that's price rejection. And then buyers and sellers have to come to a new agreement. And that's how they would get magnetized to the zone. So that's what we're looking out for. So that's also good. So all these are all looking really good. Let's keep looking at some of these other coins that are in folks' bags. I know some folks have Arrow. I know some folks have R. R will move, pirate privacy coins tend to move last. People like to hide their profits. Um, yeah, a strong couple days here coming out of the fourth. People feeling good. Still have, like I said, resistance up ahead. We're not out of the water yet at all by any means. But these are, relatively speaking, from a dollar cost average perspective, good coin, good prices. slight fall in Bitcoin dominance, market dominance, which is why alts are relatively stronger. But like I said, you can still have them both go up while this falls. It's just that one will relatively go up farther than another. If we were up here getting a strong rejection down, that would have a much higher odds to produce this really volatile alt season. So maybe we get this trickle effect up there, and then where Bitcoin is relatively stronger for the most part, and then we get that nice rejection from there, and then we could have a strong alt season. So just want to try to definitely keep an eye on. Yep. And then sorry, I was just adjusting a longer term position. As I was doing that, I was just thinking about the scenario that if this failed here and we had a more extended sideways balance, right? This would be the possibly for an entry, right? If you know. But now that we broke this, right, maybe we'll use this for a shorter intermediate term target potentially. Because we knew this had higher odds to break out. That was discussed in the channel because of this inverse head and shoulders pattern, super strong zero line reject. We have this maturity in the balance that was already there. And of course, as I also mentioned, the candlestick pattern was also much different, very bullish this time compared to the very bearish selling tail, at least neutral compared to the selling tail, neutral or bullish. And this is what we got. So we are pretty happy right now. We need this price action. We need this growth. We need this excitement for prices to move. And when that happens, remember, we can be more aggressive on support all around in a general sense and more cautious at resistance as I have been lately, getting out of my shorts quite a bit and so on. But I know this is sort of not necessarily impromptu, but the timing of this one's been a little off. I've my little dog here has been limping here, so I was thinking, should I take it to the vet? Should I not? So I was dealing with that a little bit. It's looking at me right here. I might just take it out, but I really might just do a more frequent videos to check in because unless folks kind of show up with the question in the middle of the summer right now, I know a balanced breakout is pretty exciting. All I can say is that when they happen, then you can get momentum going. And then, this maybe waiting to hear was a little premature and this was the right setup given that Ethereum was at its support. But, I have a 6% risk model and that precludes me taking a lot of trades that maybe don't line up. Maybe I wasn't ready to take a loss here and then take one again here. I'm certainly not going to have I guess I could have went a quarter size and had a wide stop, but the true invalidation point is the low of the day, and I want that edge in trade location to get a stop that has some room. Willingly knowing that at least on the hourly, this was a nice reversal on the CCI oscillator here, called a hook from extremes, I would say, since we had too much of a turbo overshoot. But at one point, it looked like a zero line reject, and that's when it was touching the VWAP, right? And then we had that strong breakdown, kind of morphed into this. Like I said, aggressive trade. I think we might be going sideways. There'll be another opportunity for us to go long, possibly tonight. I may have to not go to bed early and try to muster up some energy for a night session to trade because some of these have been happening at night. They've been pretty awesome. So we will see. We'll see. This is what we wanted, guys. All right. I'll do these more frequent. I know this wasn't a long one, but this is what it is for today. We'll get it done. We'll keep at it, and we'll be there to follow correct process and scan for the next trades. All right, guys. Over and out.